On Mother's Day, my daughter gave her mother-in-law a $25,000 ring and a cruise. I got a $10 plastic flower and a note. The next day she called me 30 times. Please, Mom, don't sell the company. Before we continue, first let me thank you for watching Granny's Voice. Please subscribe and tell us where you're watching from in the comments. We might give you a shout out in our next video. Today's special shout out goes to Rose Lowe from Humble, Texas. Thank you for being part of our family. Now, let me tell you everything. I'm 72 years old and I thought I knew what real pain felt like. I was wrong. Mother's Day began like a storm waiting to happen. Woke up in my silent apartment, brewed tea for one, and stared at the empty chair where my husband Robert used to read his morning paper. He'd been gone for 2 years, but I still set his place at breakfast sometimes. The quiet used to feel peaceful, but now it just reminded me of all the phone calls that never came. Emma had texted me the night before, short and cold. Mom, we're celebrating at Sandra's house tomorrow. You should show up. 2 p.m. exactly. Should show up. Not we want you there, or please come celebrate with us. Just another task on her list. I arrived at Sandra's mansion right at 2 p.m. The circular driveway was packed with fancy cars, and I could hear music flowing from the garden. Sandra had always been everything I wasn't. Wealthy, charming, perfectly dressed. Her house looked like a palace, all glass walls and expensive art. When I walked through the Golden Gate, I saw them all sitting around a huge outdoor table. Emma sat right next to Sandra, laughing at something private between them. My son-in-law Michael was cooking steaks, acting like the perfect son Sandra had raised. Nancy, Sandra called out, waving her jeweled hand. How nice that you made it. Emma glanced up and pointed to an empty chair. Hi, Mom. You can sit there. She pointed to a spot far from everyone else, like I was a stranger at my own daughter's celebration. I sat down quietly, watching everyone chat about trips I'd never taken and people I'd never met. Michael's parents were there with their grandkids. Sandra's book club friends filled the other chairs. Everyone belonged except me. Then came the gift-giving moment. Oh, Sandra, we have something amazing for you, Emma announced, jumping up with more joy than I'd seen from her in years. Michael appeared with a velvet box and a golden envelope. Sandra opened the box and gasped. Inside was a sparkling diamond ring that caught the sunlight like a star. Emma, darling, this is incredible, Sandra cried. Nothing's too good for the woman who raised such a wonderful son, Emma gushed, hugging Sandra tight. And there's more. The envelope held cruise tickets for 2 weeks in Hawaii. First class everything. Sandra started crying happy tears while everyone clapped and cheered. Emma beamed with pride like she'd just won a prize. My chest felt heavy watching them. $25,000, maybe more. Then Michael cleared his throat. And now for Grandma Nancy, he said, but his voice sounded tired. Emma walked over carrying a small paper bag. Inside was a fake plastic flower from the discount store and a card that looked grabbed from a gas station. I opened the card. It said Happy Mother's Day in printed letters. Underneath, Emma had written, Thanks for everything, Mom. Like I was her mail carrier. The whole table went quiet. Everyone stared at me, waiting to see what I'd do. Sandra coughed uncomfortably. Even Michael looked embarrassed. It's nice, I whispered, barely able to speak. Thank you, sweetheart. But Emma had already turned back to Sandra, starting a loud story about the cruise ships they'd picked. Everyone forgot about me and my cheap flower. I sat there feeling smaller than an ant. I stayed another hour, watching my daughter shower Sandra with attention and love while treating me like I was invisible. When I said I needed to go home, Emma barely looked my way. Thanks for coming, Mom. Be careful driving. The drive home felt endless. I kept thinking about that expensive ring and those cruise tickets. The pure happiness on Emma's face when she gave them. When was the last time she'd smiled at me like that? When was the last time she'd thought about what would make me happy? I parked in my driveway and stared at that silly plastic flower. 45 years of being her mother, and this is what I meant to her. A last-minute afterthought from the bargain bin. That night I couldn't sleep. Kept seeing that scene over and over, wondering what I'd done wrong. I'd built a successful flower shop from nothing, helped hundreds of families through hard times, volunteered at the hospital for years. But somehow I'd failed at the most important job. Being worth my daughter's love. I got up and walked to my desk where I kept all my important papers. Bank statements, business records, tax forms, everything that showed my life's work. And that's when I started wondering what I'd built it all for. The sleepless night became a sleepless week. I couldn't stop thinking about that plastic flower and how Emma had looked at Sandra with such real love. It hurt like a broken bone that wouldn't heal. I decided I needed to find out the truth. Not the kind you get from fighting or yelling, but real truth. The kind hidden in old receipts and bank records. I spent Saturday in my office, pulling out boxes I hadn't opened in years. Robert used to laugh at me for keeping every paper. You never know when you'll need proof, I'd tell him. I never thought I'd need proof of my own motherhood. The first box I opened was labeled Emma School. Inside were college bills, dorm payments, and tons of smaller costs I'd forgotten. Books, a computer, even speeding tickets she'd gotten driving to parties. $52,000 total, not counting the car I'd bought when hers died senior year. But that was just the start. I found the folder marked Wedding E&M. $65,000 for one day. The church, flowers, food, her dress, the photographer. I'd paid for everything because I wanted her day to be perfect. Michael's parents had brought potato salad. Then came the house papers. When Emma and Michael got married, they'd wanted to buy a home in the fancy Hillcrest neighborhood. Their salaries weren't enough for the house they dreamed of, so I'd promised to help with the down payment. Then when Michael's car repair shop hit trouble 2 years later, I'd quietly paid their house payment for 8 months. They never knew. I made sure of that. The car loans were next. 4 different cars over the years, each one. Just until we get steady again. Those loans never got paid back and I never asked. I just quietly added them to my monthly bills like buying groceries. But it was the emergency money that really shocked me. 2020, Michael's auto shop almost went out of business. He trusted the wrong people, made bad deals. They were about to lose everything. Emma had called me sobbing, begging for help. I'd sent $90,000 that very day. No paperwork, no payment plans, just a mother helping her child. They'd bought a boat 4 months later. I leaned back in my chair, staring at my calculator. Over the past 18 years, I'd given or spent almost $500,000 on Emma and Michael. College, wedding, house, cars, business rescues, and countless small things. I'd stopped counting years ago. $500,000, more than most families see in their whole lives. And yesterday I'd gotten a plastic flower. The hardest part wasn't the money. I'd made good choices with my flower shop, saved well, invested smart. I could afford to be generous. The hardest part was realizing that my generosity had become invisible to Emma. Expected, like breathing. I pulled out my phone and looked through our text messages from the past year. Her texts were quick and demanding. Can you watch the kids? Michael needs to borrow your van. We need money for school. Supplies. Always asking, never giving. Never a simple, how are you doing, Mom? Or, I was thinking about you. But Sandra got diamond rings and cruise ships. I opened my laptop and looked up Emma's house payment. Still coming from my bank account, of course. The payments happened automatically every month so I wouldn't have to think about it. That bank account also showed Michael's auto shop insurance, which I'd been paying for 3 years. Emma's part-time job at the daycare only happened because I'd recommended her to the owner, my friend Janet. They weren't just my daughter and son-in-law. They were my pendants, adults in their 30s who'd built their whole life around my money. And somehow I'd become the bad guy in their story. The cold mother who didn't understand them, who couldn't connect with their modern life. They'd made me the villain while living off my kindness. I closed the laptop and looked around my office. Awards covered the walls from the business community. Photos of me with customers, newspaper articles about my shop's success. But there were no recent pictures of Emma and me together. She'd stopped wanting pictures with me years ago. The clock showed 5 o'clock. I'd been looking through papers for 9 hours, and the truth was crystal clear. I'd spent years trying to buy my daughter's love, and all I'd done was teach her that I was a source of money, not affection. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Mom, Michael's truck won't start. Can we use yours this week?" I stared at the message for a long time before typing back. "I'll think about it." It was the first time in years I hadn't said yes right away. That night I made a choice that would change everything. Called my lawyer. Monday morning I sat across from Jennifer Walsh, my attorney for 15 years. Her office overlooked Main Street, and I could see my flower shop from her window, a reminder of everything I'd built with my own hands. "Nancy, you look tired," Jennifer said, pouring herself coffee. "What's troubling you?" I'd practiced this conversation all weekend, but sitting there, the words felt heavy as stones. "I want to talk about selling my business." Jennifer's coffee cup stopped halfway to her mouth. "Bloom Forever Flowers. But you've spent 25 years building that shop. It's your baby." "That's exactly the problem," I said quietly. "I need to know what would happen to my family if I sold." I watched Jennifer's face change as she realized this wasn't just curious talk. She grabbed a notepad, her professional mask sliding into place. "Tell me what's worrying you," she said. Over the next hour I explained everything I'd discovered. The house payments, the business help, the web of money dependence I'd accidentally created. Jennifer wrote notes, asking questions here and there, but keeping her face neutral. "So if you sold the shop," she said finally, "Michael would lose his insurance payments, Emma would lose her job reference, and they'd need to handle their house payment alone." "Exactly." Jennifer set down her pen. "Nancy, can I ask what brought this on? Last month you were talking about expanding the shop, maybe bringing Emma in as a partner." I told her about Mother's Day, about the plastic flower and the diamond ring, about years of feeling like a walking wallet. Jennifer listened without interrupting, though I saw her wince at some parts. "I see," she said when I finished. "And you're thinking of selling to find out who your daughter really is." "Right now, I don't know if she loves me or my money," I said. Jennifer nodded slowly. "There are gentler ways to do this. We could reduce your support gradually. Maybe cut back the payments over time." "No," I said firmly. "Gradual change gives people time to adapt, to find new ways to use me. If I'm going to do this, it needs to be complete." We spent another hour talking details. Jennifer knew people in the business world who bought small shops. She thought the process would take 4 to 6 months, maybe longer. "I'll need complete secrecy," I said. "Nobody can know until it's done." "Of course, but Nancy, once you do this, you can't undo it. Are you ready for Emma's reaction?" I thought about that plastic flower sitting on my kitchen table. I'm ready for her to show me who she really is. That afternoon I started making small changes. I called Michael's auto shop and told them I was reviewing my insurance policies. "Budget cuts," I explained. "I might need to make changes." The worry in his voice was instant. "Mrs. Chen, we can work something out. Maybe a payment plan." "It's not about payments, Michael. It's about making tough choices." Next I called Janet at the daycare who employed Emma part-time. I told her I was stepping back from personal recommendations and she'd need to evaluate Emma like any other employee within 60 days. Professional, businesslike, no emotional explanations. Emma called that evening, her voice tight with fear. "Mom, Janet said something about job reviews. Did I do something wrong?" "Not at all, dear. I'm just separating my business from my personal life. But I need that job. It's my only income." "I'm sure you'll do fine," I said calmly. "You're very capable." There was a long pause. "Mom, are you okay? You're acting weird lately." "I'm fine, Emma. Just busy with business things." After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen looking at that plastic flower. For the first time in years, I felt something I'd almost forgotten. Power. Not the kind that comes from writing checks or fixing problems, but the kind that comes from making your own decisions. The next few weeks fell into a pattern. I met with people interested in buying my shop, looked over financial papers, and slowly untangled the threads that connected my business to my daughter's lifestyle. Jennifer handled most of the legal stuff, but I wanted to be involved in every choice. The hardest part was keeping secrets. I'd never been good at hiding things from Emma, even when I should have. But this felt different. This felt necessary. 3 weeks later, I got a call from Michael. "Mrs. Chen, I heard from someone at the Chamber of Commerce that you might be selling your shop. Is that true?" My heart pounded, but I kept my voice steady. "People love to gossip, Michael. You know how small towns are. But if you were selling, you'd tell us, right? I mean, it would affect our insurance. If and when I make any major business decisions, you'll know at the right time." That night, Emma showed up at my door. She looked exhausted, her hair messy, wearing an old sweater I remembered from her college days. "Mom, we need to talk," she said, pushing past me into my living room. "Michael's insurance, my job situation, now rumors about you selling the shop. What's happening?" I sat down across from her, hands folded calmly. "I'm reconsidering my priorities." "What does that mean?" "It means I'm 72 years old and I'm tired of carrying everyone else's problems." Emma's face turned red. "Is this about Mother's Day? About the gift?" "I'm sorry if you didn't like it, but money's been really tight lately." I almost laughed out loud. Tight on money while living in a house I helped buy, driving cars I'd paid for, working at a job I'd arranged. But I didn't say that. Instead, I just looked at her and said, "This isn't about one day, Emma. This is about understanding what truly matters." She left 30 minutes later, confused and frustrated. I watched her drive away in the car I'd helped finance, back to the house where I paid half the bills. But not for much longer. The call came on a Wednesday morning while I was signing the final sale papers. Jennifer had found a buyer, a nice family who wanted to expand their garden center business. The offer was fair, more than I'd hoped for. My phone rang just as I was reviewing the contract details. The caller ID showed my home number, which was strange since I was at Jennifer's office. "Hello, Mrs. Chen. This is Robert Martinez from Martinez Business Services. I'm calling about the sale of Bloom Forever flowers." My blood went cold. "I'm sorry, who are you?" "Robert Martinez. My company handles transitions for small business sales. I was trying to reach your office, but someone at your home said they were your business manager and could discuss the details." Closed my eyes. Only one person had a key to my house. Only one person would answer my phone and pretend to have permission they didn't have. "Thank you for calling, Mr. Martinez. Please send all future information through my attorney, Jennifer Walsh." I hung up and immediately called my house. It rang 3 times before Emma answered. "Mom's house, Emma speaking. What are you doing in my house?" Silence. Then her voice changed completely. "Mom, I thought you were at some appointment. I just came by to check your mail." "I don't need my mail checked." Another pause. "Okay, fine. I was looking for something. Michael said you might have some insurance papers he needs. And you answered my phone because..." It kept ringing. I thought it might be an emergency. I could hear the lies falling apart in her voice. "Emma, I'm coming home. We need to talk." The drive from Jennifer's office to my house took 20 minutes, but it felt like hours. I kept thinking about that phone call, how Emma had pretended to be my business manager, authorized to discuss private matters. The nerve of it was unbelievable. When I got home, Emma's car was still in my driveway. I found her in my office, sitting at my desk with papers scattered everywhere. She looked up when I walked in, her face showing both defiance and guilt. "Find what you were looking for?" "Yes." She waved at the documents. "Mom, what is this? Are you really selling the shop?" I walked over and started gathering the papers. Sale agreements, financial records, private documents she had no right to see. "These are confidential business matters." "Confidential?" Mom, this affects our whole family. Michael's insurance comes from your business. My job depends on your connections. You can't just sell without talking to us. I stopped collecting papers and really looked at her. She was 34 years old, sitting in my chair at my desk, demanding explanations for choices about my own business. How had I let this happen? Actually, Emma, I can sell my business without asking anyone's permission. It's my shop. But what about us? What about our family? What about our family? I repeated the question slowly. When did you start caring about our family? Her face flushed red. I've always cared. You're my mother. Am I? Or am I your personal bank? The silence stretched between us like a canyon. Outside I could hear children playing in the park. The sound of normal life continuing while mine fell apart. Emma's voice was smaller when she spoke again. Mom, if you're upset about Mother's Day, I already said I was sorry. We can plan something special next year. Next year, I said quietly. Just like the year after that and the year after that. Always next year when it comes to treating me with respect. I sat down in the chair across from my own desk, looking at my daughter like I was seeing her for the first time. Do you know how much money I've spent on you and Michael over the years? She shifted uncomfortably in her seat. We never asked you to keep track. $500,000. Not including the house payments I still make or the insurance I pay for Michael or the job I got you at Janet's daycare. Emma's mouth fell open. She clearly hadn't expected me to have real numbers. I'm not telling you this to make you feel bad, I continued. I'm telling you because I need you to understand something. I've been supporting your entire adult life, and somewhere along the way you stopped seeing me as your mother and started seeing me as a source of money. That's not true, isn't it? When was the last time you called me just to chat? When was the last time you asked how I was doing after your father died? Whether I get lonely in this empty house? Her face crumpled slightly. Mom, when Sandra got a $25,000 ring and a cruise, and I got a plastic flower, it wasn't about the money. It was about the thought, the care, the love. You spent more time picking out Sandra's gift than you did thinking about mine. Tears started rolling down her cheeks, but I couldn't stop. The words had been building up for years. You treat Sandra like family because she doesn't give you anything. You have to earn her love. But me, I'm just expected to provide, to support, to enable your lifestyle without question or appreciation. I love you, Mom, she whispered. Do you? Or do you love what I can do for you? She couldn't answer that question. We both knew why. My phone rang, cutting through the heavy silence. The caller ID showed Michael's name. Don't answer it, Emma said quickly. Picked up the phone. Hello, Michael. Mrs. Chen, Emma told me about the shop sale. We need to discuss this as family. This affects all of us. Actually, Michael, it doesn't. It affects me. It's my business to sell. But our insurance, our livelihood. Your livelihood has been my responsibility for too long. It's time for you both to take care of yourselves. I hung up and looked at Emma, who was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Mom, you can't be serious about this. I've never been more serious about anything in my life. That's when she started to panic. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 7:15 a.m. Emma's name flashed on the screen. Let it go to voicemail. It rang again immediately, then again. By the time I finished my breakfast, she'd called 15 times. I finally answered on the 16th call. Mom, please. We need to fix this. We talked yesterday, Emma. I think I was very clear. You can't just destroy our lives because you're upset about a Mother's Day gift. I set down my coffee cup, feeling that familiar anger rising. This has nothing to do with one gift, and you know it. Then what? What do you want from me? I want you to understand that I'm not your personal ATM. I want you to see me as a person, not a source of funding. I do see you as a person. You're my mother. When was the last time you treated me like one? Silence. Then, Mom, if you sell the shop, we'll lose everything. The house, Michael's insurance, my job. We'll have to start completely over. Yes, you will. And maybe that's exactly what you need. She hung up on me. 20 minutes later, she called back. Then again. I stopped counting after the 20th call. Each voicemail was a different version of the same theme. Begging, promising, threatening, manipulating. She used every trick she'd learned over the years. Mom, please call me back. We can figure this out. Mom, Michael's having chest pains from the stress. Do you want him in the hospital? Mom, I'm sorry about the flower. I'll buy you something beautiful. Just please don't sell the shop. Mom, everyone's going to think you're being cruel and heartless. Is that how you want to be remembered? By noon, she'd called 30 times. I knew because I'd started keeping count on a piece of paper. Each call proved what I'd been trying to tell her. Her whole life was built on my generosity, and she was terrified of losing it. The doorbell rang at 3 o'clock. I looked through the window and saw Emma standing on my porch, her eyes red and swollen from crying. Michael stood behind her, his face showing barely controlled anger. I opened the door but didn't invite them inside. Mom, please. Emma started immediately. We need to work this out like adults. We tried that yesterday. You weren't interested in working things out. You were interested in going through my private papers and pretending to be my business manager. Michael stepped forward. Mrs. Chen, with respect, this is affecting more than just you. We have a family to consider. So do I said quietly. I have to consider what's best for my family. And right now, what's best is for all of you to learn to take care of yourselves. Emma's face crumpled. Mom, I'm begging you. Please don't do this. You're begging me now. When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? When was the last time you invited me to dinner that wasn't a holiday? When was the last time you called just to say you love me? She opened her mouth, then closed it. We all knew the answer. I thought so, I said. You only call when you need something. You only visit when you want something. You only care when you're about to lose something. Michael's anger finally exploded. This is crazy. You're punishing us for being successful, for building a life together. Successful. I laughed, but it wasn't a happy sound. Michael, you're 36 years old and you've never made a house payment on your own. Emma's entire income comes from a job I arranged for her. You call that successful? We call it family, Emma said, her voice breaking. Families help each other. Help goes both ways, Emma. What have you done to help me? What have you contributed to this family besides taking? The question hung in the air like smoke. Emma looked at Michael, then back at me, searching for an answer that didn't exist. I gave you grandchildren, she said finally. No, you didn't. You moved across town and visit twice a year. I haven't seen Lucy and Jake in 6 months. Her face went white. Even Michael looked uncomfortable. You want to know what real family looks like? Continued. Sandra's children call her every day. They visit without being asked. They remember her birthday without reminders. They give her thoughtful gifts because they pay attention to what makes her happy. That's why she got the ring and the cruise. That's why she's treated like someone who matters. Emma was crying hard now, but I couldn't stop. Years of hurt were pouring out like water from a broken dam. I spent 25 years building my flower shop so I could provide for my family. I wanted to give you security, opportunities, a better life than I had. But somewhere along the way, you stopped appreciating what I gave you and started expecting it. Stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a resource. Mom, please, she whispered. I'm sorry. Change. I'll be better. You're sorry because you're scared, I said. You're not sorry because you understand what you did wrong. Michael grabbed Emma's arm. Come on, we're wasting our time. She's made up her mind. But Emma pulled away from him. No, wait. She looked at me with something I hadn't seen in years. Real fear mixed with real understanding. Mom, what do you want from me? Tell me what I need to do to fix this. I looked at my daughter. really looked at her. 34 years old, crying on my doorstep, finally asking the right question. But it was too late. I want you to figure out who you are without my money, I said. I want you to learn to value relationships that aren't about what you can get. I want you to understand that love isn't about what someone can give you. And then what? If I do all that, will you change your mind? I shook my head slowly. Emma, I'm not selling the shop to punish you. I'm selling it to free myself. I'm 72 years old and I want to find out what my life looks like when I'm not responsible for everyone else's choices. I stepped back and started to close the door. Mom, wait, she called out. I love you. I really do love you. I paused, my hand on the doorknob. I love you too, Emma. That's why I'm doing this. Then I closed the door and listened to her cry on my porch for the next 15 minutes before they finally drove away. The sale would be final in 3 weeks. 4 months after the sale closed, I was sitting on the deck of my new lake house, watching the sunset paint the water in shades of orange and purple. The house was smaller than my old one, but it felt like home in a way that surprised me. No memories of disappointment, no rooms that echoed with hurt feelings. The move had been surprisingly simple. 25 years of business files, customer records, and flower arrangements, all packed away and stored. I kept only what mattered. Some photos, Robert's favorite books, and the baby quilt my mother had made when Emma was born. The lake house came furnished, which was perfect. I didn't want to drag the past into this new life. The previous owners had left behind comfortable furniture and a small garden that needed care. I'd never had time for gardening before, but now I had nothing but time. Emma hadn't called in 2 months. The silence hurt, but it also brought peace. I'd spent so many years measuring my worth by her approval, her visits, her needs. Now I was learning to measure it by my own happiness. The business sale had given me more than enough money for a comfortable retirement. I'd set up college funds for my grandchildren, money they'd get directly when they turned 18 with no parental control. It was my way of making sure they'd have chances without enabling their parents. I'd also quietly paid off the remaining balance on Emma and Michael's house, not as a gift, but as a final goodbye. They now owned their home completely, but they also knew they'd never get another penny from me. It was the last check I'd ever write for them. My phone rang, pulling me from my thoughts. I looked at the caller ID. Betty, my neighbor from down the lake. We'd become close friends over the past few weeks, bonding over morning coffee and evening. Nancy, are you free for lunch tomorrow? My daughter and her kids are visiting, and I'd love for you to meet them. I'd like that, I said, and meant it completely. Betty's relationship with her daughter was everything mine had never been. Natural, loving, built on real caring rather than money. After we hung up, I poured myself a glass of wine and walked down to the water's edge. The lake was calm, reflecting the last light of the day. A mother duck swam by with her babies following in a perfect line. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a second my heart jumped thinking it might be Emma. But it was from Jennifer, my attorney. Thought you'd want to know. Michael's auto shop closed last week. Emma's working full-time at the grocery store now. How are you doing? I stared at the message for a long time before responding. I'm doing well. Thanks for letting me know. I felt sad for them but not guilty. They were adults who'd made choices. Now they were learning to live with the results, just like everyone else had to do. An owl hooted across the water, its call echoing off the hills. I'd never heard that sound before moving here. There were many things I'd never experienced while I was busy being responsible for everyone else's life. Tomorrow I was starting a painting class in town. Next week I joined a book club at the library. Small things, but they were mine. Chosen because they made me happy, not because someone else needed me to do them. The strangest thing about this new life was how light I felt. 4 years I'd carried the weight of other people's problems, their bad decisions, their money troubles. I thought that weight was love, but it wasn't. It was enabling, and it had hurt us all. Real love, I was learning, sometimes meant saying no. Sometimes it meant letting people struggle so they could grow. Sometimes it meant walking away so they could find their own strength. 7 months later I got a letter. Not a phone call or a text message, but an actual handwritten letter. The return address was Emma's, but the handwriting was different. More careful, more thoughtful. "Dear Mom," it began. "I've been trying to write this letter for months, but I never knew what to say. I kept wanting to ask you to come back to fix things, to make everything like it was before. But I finally understand that the way things were before wasn't good for any of us." I set the letter down and took a deep breath before continuing. "Michael and I are getting divorced. I know you probably heard about the shop closing, about me working at the grocery store. It's been the hardest year of my life, but also the most honest. I had to learn who I was without your money, without your safety net. I had to figure out how to take care of myself for the first time ever. I'm not writing to ask for anything. I'm writing to say I'm sorry. Sorry for taking you for granted. I'm sorry for treating you like an obligation instead of a person I should cherish. I'm sorry for all the years I wasted being angry at you for things that weren't your fault. I understand now why you sold the shop. You weren't punishing me. You were freeing both of us from a terrible pattern. I just wish it hadn't taken me this long to see it clearly. I don't expect you to forgive me, and I'm not asking you to come back. I just wanted you to know that I finally understand what you tried to tell me. Family isn't about what you can give someone or what they can give you. It's about showing up, paying attention, and caring about someone for who they are, not what they can do for you. I hope you're happy, Mom. I hope you found the peace you were looking for. You deserve all the happiness in the world. Love always, Emma." Plus I kept the plastic flower. It sits on my kitchen windowsill now. And every time I see it, I remember the look on your face that day. I remember the moment I realized I'd broken your heart. I'm sorry it took me so long to care about fixing it. I sat on my deck for a long time after reading that letter, watching the sun set over the calm water. Then I went inside and wrote a response. "Dear Emma," I began. "Thank you for your letter. It means more to me than you'll ever know." But I didn't mail it that day or the next day or the day after that. Some wounds need time to heal completely before they can be reopened safely. Some relationships need space before they can be rebuilt on a foundation of truth instead of obligation and money. Maybe someday we'd find our way back to each other as real family. But for now I was content to be free. Free from guilt and manipulation. Free from the exhausting job of trying to buy love that should have been given freely. Free from carrying the weight of other people's poor choices. I was 72 years old, and for the first time in decades, I was living my own life on my own terms. It was enough. More than enough. It was everything I'd forgotten I deserved. The lake was peaceful that evening, and so was I. I'd learned that sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the chance to stand on their own feet. Even when it breaks your heart to watch them struggle. Even when they hate you for it at first. Even when it costs you everything you thought you wanted. Because real love isn't about making someone's life easier. It's about helping them become the person they're meant to be. And sometimes that means stepping back and letting them find their own way, even if the path is hard and lonely. I'd finally learned the difference between enabling and loving. And for the first time in years, I was proud of the choice I'd made. Now I'm curious about you who are listening to my story. What would you do if you were in my situation? Have you ever experienced something similar in your own family? Please comment below and let me know your thoughts. And while you're here, I'm leaving 2 other stories on the final screen that are favorites on Granny's Voice. And they will definitely surprise you with their twists and turns. Thank you so much for watching my story until the very end. Your support means the world to me, and I hope my experience can help someone else who might be going through something similar. Remember, sometimes the hardest choices are the ones that lead to the most freedom.